Madison swore she'd put in a good word for me. She said it like someone ordering their usual coffee. Casual, automatic, like the outcome was already decided. Standing in my cubicle doorway with her designer blazer and that smile that made clients sign contracts, she leaned against the frame like she owned the space. My name is Rebecca Chen. I'm 28. I've been at North Point Marketing for 3 years, working account management for mid-tier clients while dreaming of the senior role that just opened up. I keep my workspace organized because chaos breeds mistakes, and mistakes in this business cost campaigns. My desk sits in the northeast corner of the 4th floor, close enough to the break room to hear gossip, but far enough from the executive offices to feel invisible. I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from, and if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. The promotion was for Senior Account Director, overseeing the healthcare division. Base salary jumped from $68K to $95K, plus commission that could push it past 6 figures. Real money. The kind that meant trading my studio apartment for a 1-bedroom, maybe even saving for a house. The kind that meant my parents might finally stop asking when I was going to find something more stable. Madison Torres had been my closest friend at North Point since orientation day. We'd started the same week, sat through the same mind-numbing training sessions about client retention metrics and brand positioning. She had the kind of confidence I envied, the way she'd walk into a room and own it before saying a word. While I spent weekends preparing presentation decks, she spent them networking at rooftop bars downtown, collecting business cards like trading cards. "The position is basically yours," she said that Tuesday morning, adjusting her statement necklace. "I mean, who else has your client satisfaction scores? Thompson loves your work on the MedCore account." Robert Thompson was our department VP, the kind of executive who wore expensive suits but cheap ties, who remembered your name only if you'd made him money recently. The MedCore pharmaceutical account had been my baby for 18 months. I'd grown their quarterly ad spend from $200K to $850K, increasing their patient acquisition by 43%. The case study was already being used in our new client pitch decks. "You really think so?" I asked, minimizing the budget spreadsheet I'd been updating. The cursor blinked in the cell marked Q3 projections. Madison nodded, checking her phone screen. "Thompson specifically mentioned you in yesterday's leadership meeting, said you had the analytical skills and client rapport they needed for the healthcare division expansion." She paused, looking up from her messages. "Plus, Rebecca, you've earned this. 3 years of staying late, covering for other people's mistakes, making everyone else look good. It's your turn." The application deadline was Friday. I'd already drafted my cover letter twice, tweaking the language about my strategic vision for healthcare marketing in an aging population. The role required someone who could manage 4 senior accounts while developing new business in the pharmaceutical sector. Everything pointed to me: my track record, my relationships with existing healthcare clients, my understanding of compliance regulations that scared off most account managers. "Are you applying?" I asked. Madison laughed, the kind that sounded genuine but landed wrong. "For healthcare? Please. You know I hate dealing with all those FDA requirements and medical jargon. I'm holding out for something in tech or lifestyle brands, much more of my speed." She had said similar things before when promotions came up. Marketing preferred the glamorous accounts, fashion brands, restaurants, entertainment companies that throw launch parties and send gift baskets. Healthcare meant conference calls about drug interaction warnings and approval timelines that stretched for months. Madison liked campaigns that went viral, not ones that got approved by medical review boards. I spent that Wednesday updating my resume, quantifying achievements I'd been too modest to emphasize before. Increased client retention by 23%, managed portfolio worth $2.3 million annually, led cross-functional team that delivered project 6 weeks ahead of schedule, numbers that looked impressive in Calibri font, arranged in bullet points that told the story of someone ready for more responsibility. Thursday evening, I stayed late to finish the application materials. The office had that after-hours quiet, just the hum of computers and the occasional ding of the elevator. I printed everything on the good paper, the kind we saved for important client presentations. The cover letter ran exactly 1 page, professional, but passionate about the opportunity to expand our healthcare market share. Madison texted around 8:30. Still at the office? You're so dedicated. That's exactly why you're going to get this. Friday morning, I submitted the application through our internal portal. 20 minutes before the noon deadline, the system generated an automatic confirmation email with a case number and timeline. Initial review by next Tuesday, interviews the following week, decision by month end. 3 weeks would determine whether I kept managing the same 4 accounts or stepped into the kind of role that came with my own office and assistant. "It's done," I told Madison when she stopped by my desk around lunch. "Excellent," she said, but something in her voice felt different, tighter. "I'm sure you'll hear good news soon." That afternoon, I treated myself to coffee from the expensive place down the block instead of the break room machine. The barista wrote my name correctly on the cup for once, a small victory that felt significant. Walking back to the office, I imagined having this conversation with Madison in 3 weeks, celebrating over drinks, finally being peers instead of her being the one everyone noticed first. The weekend crawled by. I organized my apartment, did laundry, meal prepped for the week ahead. Sunday evening, I ironed my best blouse and hung it in the front of my closet. The interviews weren't scheduled yet, but I wanted to be ready. Monday morning brought the usual rhythm: emails from clients, budget reviews, a conference call about Q4 campaign strategies. Madison seemed busy, ducked into back-to-back meetings I hadn't seen on her calendar before. When I passed her desk around 3, she was on a call, speaking in the animated tone she used with important people. "Absolutely. I think the healthcare sector represents a massive growth opportunity. My experience with pharmaceutical compliance gives me a unique perspective." I stopped walking. Pharmaceutical compliance. Madison had complained about FDA requirements just 6 days ago, called them tedious and creativity killing. She had specifically said healthcare wasn't her speed, that she was waiting for something in tech or lifestyle brands. Particularly my work on the MedCore account, which I helped grow by over 40%. My stomach dropped like an elevator with cut cables. MedCore was my account, had been since month 3 of my employment. Madison had never worked on pharmaceutical clients, had actively avoided them in assignment rotations. Yet she was on a call, speaking with the confidence of someone who'd built that relationship from nothing. I walked to the break room, hands shaking enough that I had to put down my coffee mug. Through the glass partition, I could see Madison still on her call, gesturing with the enthusiasm she brought to presentations. She had her notebook open, writing notes with the Mont Blanc pen she'd gotten for her birthday. "Rebecca, you okay?" Jennifer from HR was refilling her water bottle at the cooler. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "Just tired," I managed. "Long day." That evening, I logged into the internal job portal to check my application status. Still showed as under review, but there was an additional note I hadn't seen before. Multiple strong candidates identified. Interview process may be accelerated. Multiple candidates. The posting had been up for 2 weeks before I applied, visible to anyone in the company above associate level. Madison was an account manager too, same level as me. She'd had access to the posting the entire time. I opened a new browser tab and searched our company directory for Madison's recent project assignments. The system tracked client contacts, meeting attendance, even email volume by account. MedCore showed my name as primary contact, with Madison listed on exactly 3 emails over 18 months, all of them group updates I'd copied her on for visibility. Tuesday morning, I arrived at the office 30 minutes early. Madison's car wasn't in the parking lot yet, her desk's still dark. I checked the interview schedule board outside Thompson's office, the one his assistant used to track department meetings. 3 names were penciled in for Thursday and Friday: Rebecca Chen, Madison Torres, and David Kim from the Seattle office. My chest felt tight, like I had been holding my breath underwater. Madison had applied for the position she told me wasn't her speed, the one she'd actively encouraged me to pursue. She was interviewing for the promotion she said was basically mine. At 9:15, Madison arrived with her usual energy, designer coffee cup in hand, and that smile that made everything seem effortless. She hung her jacket on the back of her chair and turned toward my cubicle. "Morning, Rebecca! How was your weekend?" I looked at her across the 3 feet of space between our desks. This person I'd shared lunches with for 3 years. who knew about my student loans and my parents' expectations and my dream of buying a house before 30, who'd stood in my doorway 6 days earlier and promised to put in a good word while already knowing she planned to compete for the same opportunity. "It was fine," I said, quiet. "Perfect for recharging for a big week," she said, settling into her chair. "I have a feeling good things are coming for both of us." The cursor blinked on my computer screen. I had emails to answer, clients to call, reports to finalize. The same work I'd been doing for 3 years while believing that competence and consistency would be enough, while trusting that friendship meant supporting each other's success instead of undermining it. Madison opened her laptop and started typing, fingers moving across the keyboard with the rhythm of someone who'd never questioned their right to take what they wanted. Her screen angled away from my desk, but I caught a glimpse of a document titled Healthcare Division Strategy MT. Her initials. I turned back to my own screen and pulled up the MedCore account files. Every email, every meeting note, every strategy document had my name on it. 3 years of building relationships, understanding complex regulatory requirements, growing revenue that Madison was now claiming as her experience. A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you are enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now, back to where we left off. Tomorrow, I'd walk into Bobby Marchand's kitchen and try to save a restaurant that might not want to be saved. Tonight, I'd go home and plan a strategy for fixing problems I hadn't even identified yet. The walk back to my apartment felt longer than usual. The October air had turned cold enough to see my breath, and the streetlights reflected off shop windows full of things I couldn't afford. Portland at night is beautiful in the way that makes you feel small and significant at the same time, full of people chasing dreams that might work out if they're lucky and work hard enough. I climbed the stairs to my apartment and stood in my tiny kitchen, looking at the vegetables I'd been prepping when Mom called. Carrots, celery, onions. The foundation of almost every good dish, the building blocks that most people never think about. Tomorrow, I'd find out if Bobby Marchand knew the difference between building something and just throwing ingredients together. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah Rodriguez, my friend from culinary school who now runs a successful food truck downtown. "How's the catering biz? Still making magic in that shoebox kitchen?" "About to take on a new project," I typed back. "Mom's restaurant needs help." "Romano's? That place is still open?" "Barely. I'm going to try to turn it around." "Good luck with that. Bobby Marchand's still running the kitchen?" "You know Bobby?" "Worked with him at Chez Laurent before I started the food truck. Let's just say he has strong opinions about how things should be done." I set the phone down and started putting the vegetables away. Strong opinions from weak cooks usually meant the same thing, someone who talked more than they listened and blamed everyone else when dishes didn't work out. But maybe I was wrong. Maybe Bobby just needed someone to collaborate with instead of someone to compete against. Maybe Romano's could be saved with the right approach and enough determination. Maybe Mom would finally taste something I'd made and admit that my cooking was more than cardboard with seasoning. I set my alarm for 6 a.m. and tried not to think about all the ways tomorrow could go wrong. Friday morning arrived with the kind of rain that makes Portland famous. Not the dramatic downpour that gets people's attention, but the persistent drizzle that soaks through everything eventually. I walked to Romano's carrying my knife roll in a waterproof case, the weight of it familiar against my shoulder. 23 knives, each one selected for specific tasks, maintained sharp enough to split paper. The restaurant looked different at 8 a.m. Empty chairs, stacked on tables, floors mopped to a dull shine, the smell of industrial cleaning products mixing with yesterday's garlic. Mom was already there, counting register receipts at table 6, her reading glasses perched on the end of her nose like a librarian calculating overdue fines. "Morning, sweetheart," she said without looking up. "Bobby should be here any minute. I told him you'd be helping out for a few days while we work on some menu adjustments." "How did he take it?" "Fine. He's professional about these things." That wasn't exactly an answer, but before I could ask for details, the back door slammed with enough force to rattle the wine glasses hanging above the bar. Bobby Marchand entered like he was walking onto a stage, chef's coat pristine white, hat positioned at the precise angle that said he took himself seriously. He was shorter than I remembered, maybe 5'7", with graying hair and the kind of mustache that requires daily maintenance. "Linda," he called to Mom, not bothering to acknowledge me. "We need to talk about the seafood order. Tony's trying to charge us premium prices for fish that's 3 days old." "Bobby, I'd like you to meet my son, Marcus. He's going to be helping us out for a few days while we work on some menu adjustments." Bobby turned and looked at me like I was a health inspector he hadn't expected. His handshake was firm in the way that tries to prove something, and his eyes went immediately to my knife roll. "You cook?" he asked. "Some. I teach at Portland Culinary Institute part-time and do some catering on weekends." Culinary Institute? He said it like I'd claimed to have a degree from a correspondence school. "Well, we run a professional kitchen here. Different standards than what you're probably used to." Mom stepped between us with the diplomatic smile she uses when Uncle Raymond starts talking politics at family dinners. "Marcus is just going to observe today, maybe help with prep work. Nothing complicated." "Prep work," he repeated. "Sure, we can always use someone to chop vegetables." The kitchen at Romano's was bigger than my entire apartment, but felt cramped anyway. Too many pieces of equipment that didn't match, shelves stocked with ingredients that seemed chosen more for variety than purpose. The walk-in cooler hummed loudly enough to drown out conversation, and the grill had burn marks that suggested temperature control was more art than science. Bobby handed me an apron and pointed to a cutting board near the prep sink. "Onions," he said. "We need 4 pounds diced, quarter-inch pieces. Think you can handle that?" "Should be fine." I set up my station the way I'd learned in school. Cutting board secured with a damp towel underneath, knife at ready, bowl for scraps positioned within reach. The onions were decent quality, firm and dry, the kind that would hold their shape when cooked properly. 20 minutes later, I had 4 pounds of perfectly uniform dice, each piece exactly a quarter-inch, ready for whatever Bobby had planned. He walked over, inspected my work like a drill sergeant checking bunks, and picked up a handful to examine closer.
"Any questions for us?" Janet asked as we wrapped up. "I'm curious about the timeline for decision-making," I said, "and whether the selected candidate would have input on team building as the division expands." "We're hoping to make a decision by early next week," Thompson replied. "And yes, whoever gets this role will be integral to shaping the team structure going forward." Walking back to the elevator, I felt cautiously optimistic. The interview had gone well, better than well. They'd asked substantive questions about strategy and vision, treated me like someone who belonged in senior leadership conversations. Whatever game Madison was playing, my qualifications would speak for themselves. Back on the 4th floor, Madison was wrapping up her own interview preparation. Her desk was covered with printed articles about healthcare marketing trends, sticky notes marking key statistics and industry insights. She looked up when I passed, eyebrows raised expectantly. "How did it go?" she asked, voice careful with fake casualness. "Well, I think," I said. "They seemed engaged with my ideas." "That's fantastic," she said, but her smile looked strained. "I'm sure you made a great impression." She gathered her materials and headed toward the elevator 30 minutes later. I watched her go, noting the confident stride, the way she'd practiced holding her shoulders back. This person who'd spent 3 years avoiding healthcare accounts was now interviewing for a role leading the healthcare division, armed with research she'd done in a week. David Kim called in from Seattle for his video interview at 4 p.m. I couldn't hear the conversation, but through Thompson's glass office walls, I could see him pointing at his screen, presumably walking through portfolio materials. David had strong credentials, MBA from Northwestern, 5 years at a top-tier agency before joining Northpoint. He'd managed the West Coast pharmaceutical account successfully, though without the growth metrics I had achieved. Madison returned from her interview an hour and 15 minutes later, longer than my interview, longer than David's video call. She looked composed but tired, the kind of fatigue that comes from intense concentration. "How did yours go?" I asked when she stopped by my desk. "Really well," she said, settling into her chair. "They asked great questions about scaling strategies and team development. I think I gave them some ideas they hadn't considered." Ideas she'd developed in the past week while researching an industry she'd previously shown no interest in. I wondered what specific examples she'd given for her healthcare marketing experience, how she'd explained her sudden passion for pharmaceutical compliance. "That's great," I said. "Sounds like they're being thorough." "Definitely," she agreed. Thompson mentioned they're looking for someone who can think strategically about long-term growth. I shared some thoughts about expanding into digital health platforms and telemedicine marketing. Digital health platforms, the same trend I'd been discussing with MedCore for 6 months. trying to position them for the shift towards remote patient monitoring. Medicine had never mentioned interest in telemedicine, had never attended the industry webinars I'd forwarded to the team. That evening, I sat in my apartment reviewing the day's events. The interview itself had felt strong. Substantive questions, engaged follow-ups, positive body language from the panel. But Madison's extended interview time nagged at me. Either she'd impressed them enough to warrant extra conversation, or she'd needed more time to explain credentials that weren't as straightforward as they appeared on paper. I opened my laptop and pulled up our internal project database, searching for any record of Madison's involvement with healthcare accounts. The system was thorough, tracking even minimal touchpoints like attending meetings or reviewing documents. For MedCore, Madison appeared on 3 entries over 18 months, 2 all-hands team meetings where she'd been a passive attendee, and 1 email thread where she'd been copied on budget approvals. That was it, 3 minimal touchpoints with the account she was now claiming as experience. Meanwhile, my name appeared on 847 entries. Client calls, strategy sessions, compliance reviews, campaign approvals, relationship building that had taken place over countless hours of detailed work. Friday brought an unusual quiet to the office. Thompson was in back-to-back meetings, probably discussing the interviews with Sarah and other stakeholders. Madison seemed subdued, less of her usual animated energy. We worked in parallel silence, both presumably thinking about the decision that would reshape one of our careers. At 3 p.m., my phone rang. Patricia, from Thompson's office. "Rebecca, could you come up for a brief follow-up conversation? Thompson has a few additional questions." My heart rate spiked. Follow-up conversations could mean anything. Final clarifications before an offer, concerns that needed addressing, or simply more thorough vetting of the top candidates. "Of course," I said. "I'll be right up." This time Thompson was alone in his office, door closed, expression neutral. He gestured to the chair across from his desk. "Rebecca, thank you for coming up. I wanted to discuss something that came up during our candidate review." The bottom dropped out of my stomach. Something that came up? That phrasing never preceded good news. During Madison's interview yesterday, she mentioned some concerns about your readiness for senior-level responsibility. She felt that while your technical skills are strong, you might benefit from more leadership development before taking on a role of this scope. I sat very still, processing what I'd just heard. Madison had used her interview time not just to promote herself, but to actively undermine me, to suggest I wasn't ready for advancement, despite 3 years of evidence to the contrary. "She mentioned this?" I asked carefully.
In the context of discussing team dynamics and collaboration, Thompson continued, she felt she had insights into your working style that might be relevant to our decision-making process. Insights into my working style. Madison had turned her friendship with me into ammunition against my candidacy, using personal knowledge to plant seeds of doubt about my leadership potential. "I see," I said, mind racing through possible responses. "Could you share more specifically what concerns she raised?" Thompson shifted in his chair, clearly uncomfortable with the conversation. "She mentioned that you tend to work independently, that you might struggle with the collaborative aspects of senior leadership. She felt you were more comfortable managing projects than managing people." Every word was carefully chosen to sound like constructive feedback while systematically dismantling my candidacy. Madison had taken 3 years of working closely with me and weaponized our relationship to advance her own prospects. "Those are interesting observations," I said slowly. "I'm curious whether she provided specific examples of these collaboration challenges." Thompson consulted his notes. "She mentioned that you often stay late to handle things yourself rather than delegating, and that you tend to take on client problems rather than empowering team members to develop solutions." I recognized the grain of truth that made the criticism sound credible. I did stay late. I did take on complex client issues personally. But Madison had reframed dedication as inability to lead, thoroughness as micromanagement. She'd taken my strengths and presented them as disqualifying weaknesses. "I appreciate Madison's perspective," I said finally. "I'd welcome the opportunity to address those observations and share my own thoughts on leadership development." Thompson nodded, making more notes. That's exactly what I was hoping to hear. This is clearly a complex decision, and we want to make sure we're considering all perspectives. Walking back to the elevator, I felt something fundamental shift inside me. The promotion had always been important, but now it was about more than career advancement. It was about whether someone could sabotage 3 years of excellent work with a few carefully placed criticisms, whether friendship could be sacrificed so easily for professional gain. Madison was at her desk when I returned, typing emails with focused intensity. She looked up when I passed, expression carefully neutral. "Everything okay?" she asked. "You look stressed." I met her eyes directly, seeing clearly for the first time the calculation behind the concern. "Just fine," I said. Thompson had some follow-up questions about leadership philosophy. "Oh, good," she said, relief flickering across her features. "I'm sure you handled it well." She turned back to her screen, and I continued to my desk, mind already working through what came next. The game had changed completely. This wasn't just about competing for a promotion anymore. It was about defending myself against sabotage disguised as friendship, about protecting work I'd built from someone who'd been planning to tear it down all along. The healthcare division promotion was still within reach, but winning it would require more than just demonstrating my qualifications. It would require exposing the truth about Madison's tactics, about what she'd done with the access that friendship provided. The cursor blinked on my screen, and I began composing an email to Thompson, requesting a final conversation to address the concerns that had been raised about my candidacy. It was time to stop playing defense and start fighting for what I'd earned. That weekend, I drafted 17 different versions of an email to Thompson. Each attempt felt either too defensive or too aggressive, too emotional or too cold. How do you professionally explain that someone has spent 3 years pretending to be your friend while systematically positioning themselves to undercut your career advancement? By Sunday evening, I'd settled on a straightforward approach. I requested a meeting to provide additional context about my leadership experience and address any concerns about my collaborative abilities. Professional language that didn't mention Madison by name, but opened the door for a conversation about the source of those concerns. Thompson's response came Monday morning. "Available Tuesday at 10 a.m. Please bring specific examples of leadership and team collaboration." I spent Monday evening organizing evidence. Screenshots of emails where I'd mentored junior associates, documentation of cross-departmental projects I'd led, client testimonials that specifically mentioned my ability to coordinate complex teams across multiple organizations. The MedCore account alone involved managing relationships with 15 different stakeholders: medical directors, compliance officers, marketing coordinators, and external agency partners. Madison seemed unusually focused that Monday, head down at her desk more than usual. She'd skipped our typical Monday morning coffee run, claiming she had urgent client work to catch up on. When I passed her cubicle around noon, her screen showed LinkedIn, specifically the profile of someone from a competing agency. She minimized the window quickly when she noticed me looking. "Researching industry trends," she said with a tight smile. "You know how it is." Tuesday morning arrived gray and drizzly, the kind of weather that made the office fluorescence feel especially harsh. I'd chosen my charcoal suit with a burgundy blouse, professional but confident, colors that photographed well in case this conversation determined my future at North Point. Thompson's office felt different this time, more formal, with Sarah Martinez from Healthcare already seated at the small conference table when I arrived. This wasn't just a follow-up conversation, it was a formal review. "Rebecca, thank you for requesting this meeting." He gestured for me to sit. "Sarah and I have been discussing the healthcare division leadership role extensively, and we want to make sure we have a complete picture of all candidates. I appreciate the opportunity." I opened my portfolio. "I brought some additional materials that speak to my leadership experience and collaborative approach."
"Early bird today," he said, tying his apron with movements that looked rehearsed. "Good. We've got a busy weekend ahead. Tables are booked solid for tonight." "How many covers?"
43 reservations plus walk-ins. Could hit 60 if we're lucky. 60 covers on a Saturday night wasn't exactly packed for a restaurant Romano's size, but it was better than the sparse crowds I'd seen during the week. Weekend diners meant families celebrating, couples on dates, people willing to spend money on food that exceeded their expectations. "What's the game plan?" I asked. Bobby pulled out a prep list, written on the back of a receipt. Standard Saturday prep, extra marinara, double portions of everything. We'll need you on salads again. Maybe help with bread service if things get crazy? Bread service. Romano served dinner rolls that came frozen from a food service company, heated in the oven, and brushed with garlic butter from a squeeze bottle. The kind of bread that filled people up without inspiring anyone to ask for seconds. "Bobby, what if I handled the bread today, made something fresh?" He looked at me like I'd suggested we start serving sushi. "We don't make bread here. Too much work, too much equipment. The rolls we use are fine." "I could make focaccia. Simple recipe, uses ingredients we already have." Focaccia. He pronounced it like a foreign word he wasn't sure about. "That's not really Italian bread. Our customers expect dinner rolls." Focaccia is literally Italian bread, from Liguria, probably older than most of the dishes on our menu. Bobby's mustache twitched, a tell that meant he was about to dig in his heels. "Look, Marcus, I appreciate the enthusiasm, but we have systems here, systems that work. Our customers know what to expect, and changing things just confuses people." "What if we offered both? Keep the dinner rolls for people who want them, add fresh focaccia as an option." "Where would you even make it? We don't have a bread oven." "Regular oven works fine. I can adjust the recipe for what we have." Bobby walked to the coffee machine and poured himself a cup, buying time to think of more objections. "How long would it take?" 3 hours start to finish. Most of that is rising time." 3 hours. He said it like I'd proposed demolishing the kitchen. "We don't have 3 hours to babysit bread when we've got actual prep work to do." "I can handle the prep work and the bread. It's about timing, not workload." Bobby sipped his coffee and stared at the prep list like it contained the secrets of the universe. Finally, he shrugged. "Fine. But if it interferes with your other duties, we go back to the regular roles. And don't blame me if customers complain about changes." Victory felt smaller than I'd expected, but it was a start. I gathered ingredients for focaccia: bread flour, olive oil, yeast, salt, fresh rosemary from the herb rack that looked like it hadn't been touched in months. The rosemary was actually in good shape, woody stems and needle-bright leaves that released pine and lemon scents when crushed. Mixing the dough took 10 minutes. Flour and salt in a large bowl, yeast dissolved in warm water with a pinch of sugar to activate it, olive oil to enrich the texture. My hands knew the feel of proper dough. Smooth, slightly tacky, elastic enough to stretch without tearing. I covered the bowl with a damp towel and set it near the pilot light to rise. "Smells different," Bobby said, walking past my station. "Yeasty. That's what fresh bread smells like." The morning prep went faster with something to look forward to. I chopped vegetables while monitoring the dough, cleaned prep bowls while calculating timing for the second rise. Bobby worked his usual stations, occasionally glancing at my setup like he was waiting for disaster to strike. Around 11 a.m., Jenny arrived for her shift. She stopped at my station and inhaled deeply. "Please tell me that smell means what I think it means." "Focaccia. Should be ready for dinner service." Finally, some real food. The customers are going to flip." Bobby heard this and frowned. "The customers are perfectly happy with our current bread program." "Sure they are," Jenny said, but quite enough that Bobby could pretend he hadn't heard. I punched down the dough and turned it onto an oiled sheet pan, stretching it to fit the corners, creating dimples with my fingertips where olive oil would pool and herbs would nestle. The rosemary went on top, along with coarse sea salt, each crystal catching light like tiny diamonds.
The focaccia went into the oven at 425 degrees, filling the kitchen with the smell that makes bakeries irresistible. Yeast and wheat and herbs and heat. The aroma of something made from scratch by hands that cared about the result. Bobby tried to ignore it, but I caught him sniffing the air when he thought no one was looking. 25 minutes later, I pulled the focaccia from the oven. Golden brown with darker spots where the olive oil had caramelized, herbs still green against the burnished surface, salt crystals glistening like frost. It looked like something you'd find in a good Italian restaurant, not a place that served frozen dinner rolls. "Can I try a piece?" Jenny asked. I cut a corner square and handed it to her. She bit into it while it was still warm, and her eyes closed, in the way that happens when food hits exactly right. "Oh my God, this is incredible! Bobby, you have to try this." Bobby approached my station with the expression of someone fulfilling an obligation. I cut him a larger piece, making sure he got crust and crumb and a good distribution of herbs. He chewed thoughtfully, his face neutral, except for a slight widening of his eyes. "It's different, more rustic than what our customers usually expect." "But good different, right?" Jenny pressed.
Family stuff, she said dismissively. Nothing major. Wednesday brought an email from Thompson's assistant. Decision meeting scheduled for Thursday at 3 p.m. We'll notify all candidates of the outcome by end of business Thursday. I forwarded the message to my parents, who had been anxiously following the promotion process. My mother responded immediately. "We're proud of you regardless of outcome. You've worked so hard for this." The support felt good, but also highlighted what was at stake. This wasn't just about salary or title, it was about validation that 3 years of dedicated work meant something, that competence and integrity could win over politics and manipulation. Thursday morning arrived with unusual energy in the office. Word had somehow spread about the healthcare division decision, and people kept glancing toward Thompson's office as if they could divine the outcome through his closed door. Madison seemed especially wound up, checking her phone constantly and taking frequent trips to the break room. At 2:30, my desk phone rang. Patricia again. "Rebecca, could you come up to Thompson's office? He'd like to speak with you." This was it. Either the promotion was mine, or I was about to learn that Madison's sabotage had been successful. I gathered my things, straightened my blazer, and headed to the elevator. Thompson's office was arranged differently this time. Sarah Martinez was there again, but so was Janet Walsh from HR, and someone I didn't recognize, a woman in an expensive suit with the bearing of senior leadership. "Rebecca, please sit," Thompson said, his expression unreadable. "I'd like you to meet Catherine Burke, our regional vice president for the West Coast Division." Catherine Burke. I'd heard the name, but never met her. She was based in Los Angeles, oversaw multiple offices, the kind of executive who appeared in company newsletters and strategy announcements. "Miss Chen," Catherine said, standing to shake my hand, "I've been hearing very interesting things about your work with pharmaceutical clients." The phrasing was neutral, but something in her tone suggested this conversation might not go the direction I expected. I sat down, hands folded, waiting for whatever came next. "We've completed our review of the healthcare division candidates. It's been a complex decision with strong applicants and varied perspectives on the best path forward." Here it comes, I thought. The diplomatic explanation of why Madison's networking and interview performance had trumped my actual track record. "However," Thompson continued, "we've decided that the situation requires a different approach than we initially planned." Different approach. That could mean anything from restructuring the role, promoting multiple people, or deciding that none of us were suitable candidates. "Catherine has been watching the healthcare division's growth closely," Sarah added. "She has some thoughts about the best way to capitalize on our momentum." Catherine leaned forward, her expression serious but not unkind. "Rebecca, your work with MedCore has been exceptional.
But more than that, your approach to team development and compliance management suggests you understand healthcare marketing at a level that's quite rare in this industry. I nodded, unsure whether this was leading toward good news or elaborate disappointment. The promotion you applied for, Senior Account Director for Healthcare, is important, but it might be limiting your potential. We'd like to discuss a different opportunity with you. My heart rate spiked. Different opportunity could mean anything from lateral movement to being pushed out entirely. What kind of opportunity? I asked carefully. Catherine smiled for the first time since I'd entered the room. Regional healthcare director for the entire West Coast division. It would mean moving to Los Angeles, overseeing healthcare operations across 5 offices, building the team structure you described for a much larger scale. The words hit me like a physical impact. Not just the promotion I'd applied for, but a leap beyond anything I had imagined possible. Regional director level. The kind of role that came with equity compensation and executive status. The position comes with a significant increase in responsibility and compensation. Base salary of $140,000, plus performance incentives that could push total compensation past $200,000. I sat very still, processing what I'd just heard. Not only had I not lost the promotion to Madison's sabotage, but my qualifications had impressed leadership enough to create an entirely new opportunity. What about the senior account director position here? I asked. Thompson's expression shifted slightly, the first hint of discomfort since I'd entered the room. We're still finalizing that decision. The candidate pool has evolved as we've learned more about everyone's qualifications. The careful phrasing told me everything I needed to know. Madison's misrepresentations had been discovered. Her claims about healthcare experience had fallen apart under scrutiny. The sabotage that was supposed to destroy my candidacy had likely destroyed hers instead. I'm very interested in the regional director role, I said. When would you need a decision? Take the weekend to think it over. Moving to Los Angeles is a big change, and we want you to be certain it's the right fit. But Rebecca, I want you to know this opportunity exists because of the work you've done here. Your approach to healthcare marketing is exactly what we need to scale nationally. The meeting concluded with logistical details: relocation assistance, start date flexibility, team structure in Los Angeles. I walked back to the elevator in a daze, mind struggling to process the complete reversal of what I'd expected. The 4th floor felt different when I returned, like I was seeing it from a distance. Madison was at her desk, typing furiously, phone pressed between her ear and shoulder. She looked up when I passed, expression carefully neutral but eyes sharp with anxiety.
"How did it go?" she asked, ending her call abruptly. I considered my response carefully. The old Rebecca might have downplayed the outcome, might have protected Madison's feelings even after her betrayal. But the person who'd just been offered a regional director position felt no obligation to spare her discomfort. "Really well," I said, settling into my chair. "Better than expected, actually." Madison's smile looked forced. "That's great. So you got it?" "Something like that," I said, turning to my computer. "They should be making all the final decisions soon." My phone buzzed with a text from my parents. "How did it go?" "Good news," I typed back. "We'll call tonight with details." Madison's phone rang, and she answered with forced cheerfulness. "Madison Torres?" "Yes, I'm available to talk." "Of course, I understand." Even without hearing the other side of the conversation, her expression told me everything. The strange smile, the way her voice got tighter with each response, the careful professionalism that came with receiving bad news. "I see," she said finally. "Thank you for letting me know. I appreciate the opportunity." She hung up and sat very still for a moment, staring at her computer screen. Then she gathered her purse and stood up. "I need to step out for a bit," she said, voice carefully controlled. "Personal errands." She walked toward the elevator without looking back, leaving her desk in unusual disarray. Papers scattered, coffee cup half full, and computer still logged in and displaying her LinkedIn profile. I watched her go, feeling a complex mixture of satisfaction and sadness. The promotion process was finally over, but so was a friendship I'd valued for 3 years. Madison's betrayal had backfired spectacularly, but the cost was a relationship I thought was genuine. My desk phone rang. Patricia, from Thompson's office. Rebecca, Thompson would like you to know that the healthcare division announcement will be made tomorrow morning. He wanted to give you advance notice since it affects your decision timeline. Thank you, I said. I appreciate the heads up. Tomorrow morning, the entire office would learn about Madison's failed attempt to steal my promotion, about her misrepresentations and backstabbing tactics. The story would spread through the company gossip network within hours, permanently damaging her reputation and credibility. I felt no sympathy for her embarrassment. She had made calculated choices about our friendship, about honesty, about the kind of person she wanted to be. The consequences were simply the natural result of those choices. The cursor blinked on my computer screen, and I began drafting an email to Catherine Burke accepting the regional healthcare director position in Los Angeles. It was time to move forward, to build something new and meaningful with people who valued competence over politics. Madison's empty chair sat across from mine, a physical reminder of what happened when ambition wasn't tempered by integrity. Tomorrow, she'd return to face the professional consequences of her betrayal. But by then, I'd already be planning my move to Los Angeles, preparing for a career opportunity that existed because I'd chosen to do the work rather than simply claim credit for it. The elevator dinged in the distance, and office life continued around me. But for the first time in weeks, I felt completely clear about what came next. The promotion I'd applied for was gone, replaced by something infinitely better. And the friendship I thought I was protecting had revealed itself to be an illusion all along. Sometimes the best outcome is the one you never saw coming. Friday morning brought the official announcement. Thompson's email landed in everyone's inbox at exactly 9 a.m. Subject line, Healthcare Division Leadership Update. The message was professionally crafted, announcing the expansion of healthcare operations and my appointment as Regional Healthcare Director for the West Coast Division, effective in 6 weeks. The response was immediate. My phone started buzzing with congratulatory texts before I'd finished reading the email myself. Jessica Wong from my team appeared at my cubicle within minutes, eyes bright with excitement. "Rebecca, Regional Director? That's incredible," she said, voice pitched low but unable to contain her enthusiasm. "Does this mean you're moving to LA?" "It does," I confirmed, still processing the reality myself. "Big changes ahead." "This is so well-deserved," Jessica continued. "Everyone knows how hard you've worked on the healthcare accounts. And honestly, after what happened," she glanced toward Madison's empty desk, "well, it's nice to see the right person get recognized." Word traveled fast in an office environment. By 10 a.m., half the floor knew about my promotion and Madison's conspicuous absence from yesterday's announcement. The healthcare division restructuring was front page on our internal company portal, with quotes from Catherine Burke about strategic growth initiatives and my role in spearheading West Coast expansion. Madison returned from her extended absence around 11, moving through the office with the careful composure of someone trying to appear unaffected. She'd changed clothes since yesterday. Gone was the designer dress, replaced by a simple black blouse and neutral slacks. Professional armor for facing professional humiliation. She stopped by my desk with a smile that looked like it physically hurt to maintain. "Congratulations on the promotion," she said, voice steady despite the obvious effort required. "Regional Director is a huge opportunity." "Thank you," I replied, meeting her eyes directly. "It's definitely unexpected." "I'm sure you'll do great in Los Angeles," she continued. "Have you thought about a timeline for the move?" The conversation felt surreal. Madison discussing my promotion like a supportive colleague, as if the past 2 weeks of deception and sabotage had never happened.
as if we were still friends navigating career developments together instead of former friends dealing with the aftermath of betrayal.
6 weeks, I said. Enough time to transition my accounts and help with the handover process. Madison nodded, glancing around the office. Other people were watching our interaction, curious about how we'd navigate this moment. She seemed aware of the audience, maintaining her professional facade even as the cost was written across her face. "Well, I should let you get back to work," she said finally. "Lots to organize, I'm sure." She returned to her desk and immediately opened her laptop, diving into emails with focused intensity that looked more like avoidance than productivity. I could see her screen from my angle. She was browsing job listings on Indeed, scrolling through marketing positions at competing agencies. The irony wasn't lost on me. Madison had gambled our friendship and her professional reputation on stealing a promotion, and now she was likely looking for a new job entirely. Word about her tactics would spread through industry networks quickly. Marketing was a smaller community than people realized, and reputation mattered enormously. Around noon, Thompson appeared on the floor, making rounds to speak with team members about the healthcare division transition. When he reached my desk, his expression was warmer than I'd ever seen it. "Rebecca, congratulations again on the appointment," he said, shaking my hand formally. "Catherine is thrilled to have you leading the West Coast expansion. Your vision for team structure aligns perfectly with corporate strategy." "I'm excited about the opportunity," I said. "The healthcare market in California has tremendous potential." "Absolutely. And your experience with regulatory compliance will be invaluable as we pursue larger pharmaceutical clients." He paused, glancing around the office. "I wanted you to know that we'll be posting the senior account director position next week. Several strong internal candidates have already expressed interest." The position I'd originally applied for would be filled by someone else, probably Jessica or another junior associate ready for advancement. The role that had seemed so important 6 weeks ago now felt like a stepping stone I'd skipped entirely. "That's great," I said. "There's a lot of talent on this team ready for growth opportunities." Thompson nodded, then lowered his voice slightly. "I also wanted to mention that we've made some adjustments to our interview process based on recent experiences. We're implementing more thorough reference checks and portfolio verification to ensure candidates' claimed experience aligns with documented contributions." The message was clear without being explicit. Madison's misrepresentations had prompted policy changes to prevent similar situations in the future. Her attempt to game the system had backfired so spectacularly that it was changing how the company evaluated candidates. After Thompson moved on, I spent the afternoon fielding congratulations and questions about the Los Angeles transition. People wanted to know about the role scope, the team I'd be building, the timeline for healthcare division expansion. Each conversation reinforced how significantly my career trajectory had shifted in just 1 week. At 3 p.m., my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Heard about your promotion through the industry grapevine. Well deserved. Marcus Chen, Director of Marketing, Tentacle Agency." Marcus Chen was a senior executive at one of our biggest competitors, someone I'd met briefly at industry conferences but didn't know personally. The fact that news of my promotion had already reached competing agencies spoke to how closely the marketing community followed personnel moves. By 5 p.m., Madison had cleaned out her desk drawers and was packing personal items into a cardboard box. She moved efficiently but quietly, avoiding eye contact with colleagues who occasionally glanced her way. The office atmosphere felt charged with unspoken awareness of what had transpired. I debated whether to say anything as she prepared to leave. Part of me wanted closure, wanted to address the betrayal directly and understand how she justified her actions. But another part recognized that some conversations were pointless, that Madison had made her choices and would have to live with the consequences. She stopped by my desk one final time, cardboard box balanced in her arms. "Rebecca, I want you to know that I'm genuinely happy about your success. You've always been dedicated to your work, and this promotion reflects that dedication." The words sounded sincere, but they carried undertones of resignation and regret. Madison was intelligent enough to understand exactly how her gamble had failed, how her attempt to undermine me had ultimately accelerated my career beyond anything she could have achieved through honest competition.
Thank you, I said simply. I hope things work out well for you too. She nodded once and walked toward the elevator, back straight and chin up, despite carrying the physical symbols of professional failure. Whatever job search she was beginning would be complicated by the circumstances of her departure from North Point. That evening, I called my parents to share the full story of the past 2 weeks. My mother was appropriately outraged by Madison's betrayal, while my father focused on the strategic implications of the promotion. Regional director at 28 is exceptional career advancement. This positions you for VP level roles by your early 30s. It's definitely more than I expected. 6 months ago, I was just hoping for the senior account director position here. Sometimes the best opportunities come from unexpected places, my mother added. And honestly, I'm glad you're getting away from that toxic situation with Madison. Friends don't sabotage each other's careers. The conversation helped clarify my own feelings about the dramatic career shift. The promotion was objectively excellent. Significant salary increase, leadership responsibility, equity compensation, relocation to a major market. But it also meant leaving behind the professional environment I'd known for 3 years, starting over in a new city with new colleagues. Saturday, I drove to Los Angeles for a preliminary meeting with Catherine Burke and the West Coast healthcare team. The North Point, LA office occupied 3 floors of a downtown high-rise with modern conference rooms and panoramic city views that made our cramped headquarters feel provincial by comparison.
Catherine introduced me to the existing healthcare team, 4 account managers currently handling West Coast pharmaceutical clients with varying degrees of success. The accounts were smaller than what I'd managed, but the growth potential was significant given California's concentration of biotech companies and medical device manufacturers. The team is eager for leadership, Catherine explained during our private meeting. They've been operating without clear direction since our last healthcare director left 8 months ago. Your experience with compliance and relationship building is exactly what they need. We discussed territory expansion, client acquisition strategies, and team development plans. The conversation lasted 3 hours, covering everything from regulatory training programs to office space expansion to accommodate projected growth. I want to be transparent about the challenges ahead, Catherine said as we wrapped up. Building a regional division from the ground up is demanding work. Long hours, frequent travel, high performance expectations. But the upside potential is substantial, both professionally and financially. Driving back to the Bay Area that evening, I felt energized rather than overwhelmed by the scope of responsibility ahead. The healthcare division in Los Angeles needed exactly the kind of systematic approach I'd developed with MedCore, understanding regulatory complexity, building trust with medical professionals, creating efficient processes that could scale with growth. Sunday brought a surprising text from Madison. Rebecca, I owe you an apology. What I did was wrong, and I understand if you never want to speak to me again. I hope LA is everything you want it to be. I stared at the message for several minutes, considering possible responses. The apology felt genuine, but it also felt insufficient given the calculated nature of her betrayal. She hadn't just made an impulsive mistake. She'd spent weeks planning how to undermine my candidacy while maintaining our friendship. Thank you for the apology, I typed back. I hope you find a situation that's a better fit for your goals. Professional courtesy without forgiveness. Some bridges, once burned, couldn't be rebuilt through text message apologies. Monday marked the beginning of my transition period at North Point. Jessica Wong was officially promoted to Senior Account Manager for the MedCore account, with my recommendation carrying significant weight in the decision. During our handover meeting, she asked the question I'd been dreading. How do you handle working with people who aren't honest about their intentions? She said, glancing toward Madison's former desk. I mean, everyone knows what happened, but nobody talks about it directly. You focus on what you can control, I said after considering my response. Your work quality, your relationships with clients, your reputation for integrity. People reveal who they are through their actions, and eventually those actions have consequences. Do you think she'll find another job quickly? Jessica asked. Maybe, but industry reputation matters more than people realize. Word spreads fast about questionable professional behavior. That afternoon, I received a LinkedIn message from David Kim, the candidate who'd interviewed from the Seattle office. Congratulations on the regional director appointment. Looking forward to collaborating as you build the West Coast division. The healthcare market here has enormous potential. David had been offered the senior healthcare account director position in Seattle, managing Pacific Northwest pharmaceutical clients as part of the broader West Coast expansion. The role I'd originally competed for was being filled by multiple people across different markets, reflecting the growth trajectory Catherine had envisioned. The next 2 weeks flew by with transition planning, client meetings, and preparation for the Los Angeles move. I found an apartment in Santa Monica, close enough to downtown for easy commuting, but near the beach for work-life balance. The rent was significantly higher than my Bay Area studio, but the salary increase more than compensated for the additional expense. Jessica proved to be a natural with client relationship management, quickly establishing rapport with MedCore's medical directors and demonstrating the analytical skills that had impressed me during her training period. Watching her step into increased responsibility reinforced my confidence in the mentorship approach I developed. "You're leaving the accounts in excellent hands," Thompson told me during our final one-on-one meeting. "Jessica's transition has been seamless, and the clients are comfortable with the continuity." "She's ready for the challenge," I agreed. "The healthcare accounts will be in better shape than when I started managing them." Friday of my final week, the office threw a small farewell gathering in the break room. Cake from the bakery downstairs, coffee that was slightly better than usual, colleagues sharing memories and well wishes for the Los Angeles opportunity. The atmosphere was genuinely warm, a reminder that most workplace relationships were positive even when individual situations turned complicated. "Speech!" someone called out as I cut the cake, and the room echoed with encouragement. "I just want to thank everyone for 3 years of collaboration and support," I said, looking around at faces I'd worked alongside through countless projects and deadlines. The healthcare accounts grew because of team effort, and I'm excited to take the lessons learned here to Los Angeles. "We're proud of you," called out Robert from accounting, and the sentiment was echoed by nods and smiles around the room. Thompson raised his coffee mug in a mock toast. "To Rebecca Chen, our newest regional director, and proof that dedication and competence still matter in this business."
Walking to the elevator for the last time as a North Point Bay Area employee, I reflected on how dramatically my career had shifted in just 1 month. The promotion I'd applied for had led to an opportunity I'd never imagined, while the friendship I'd valued had revealed itself to be transactional rather than genuine. The elevator doors closed on the 4th floor, carrying me away from 3 years of professional development and toward a future that felt full of possibility. Los Angeles represented more than just a new job. It was a chance to build something meaningful from the ground up, to apply everything I'd learned about healthcare marketing on a scale that could impact an entire region. My phone buzzed as I reached the parking garage. A text from Catherine Burke. "Looking forward to Monday morning. The team is excited to get started." Monday morning would begin my tenure as Regional Healthcare Director, leading a division that would grow from 4 account managers to an anticipated 15 within 2 years. The challenge was significant, but so was the opportunity to shape healthcare marketing across the entire West Coast. I drove out of the North Point parking lot for the final time, already mentally preparing for the week ahead in Los Angeles. The promotion Madison had tried to steal had led to something infinitely better than either of us had originally envisioned. Sometimes the best outcomes emerged from the worst intentions, and sometimes betrayal became the catalyst for growth that wouldn't have happened otherwise. The drive home took me past the coffee shop where Madison and I had shared countless morning conversations about career goals and professional ambitions. I didn't stop for my usual order. That chapter of my life was officially closed, and the next one was about to begin. 2 months into my Los Angeles role, I was reviewing quarterly performance reports when my assistant knocked on my office door. The title still felt surreal. Regional Healthcare Director, with my name etched on a brass nameplate and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown LA's financial district. "Rebecca, there's someone here to see you," Ashley said, her expression carefully neutral in the way that suggested an uncomfortable situation. "Madison Torres from our Bay Area office. She says you used to work together." My coffee mug paused halfway to my lips. Madison was here, in Los Angeles, asking to see me. 2 months after our awkward farewell, after her career-damaging departure from North Point, she was standing in my office building requesting a meeting. Did she say what this was about? I asked, mind racing through possibilities. She mentioned a business proposal, Ashley replied. Should I tell her you're in meetings? I considered the easy escape Ashley was offering. Madison had forfeited any claim to my time or consideration when she'd tried to sabotage my career. But curiosity won over caution, and I found myself nodding. Give me 5 minutes, then send her in. I used the time to compose myself, straightening papers on my desk and mentally preparing for whatever conversation was about to unfold. The Madison who entered my office looked different from the confident colleague I'd known. Her designer clothes were replaced by a more modest navy suit, her usually perfect hair was slightly disheveled, and her trademark smile seemed forced. "Rebecca," she said, stopping just inside the doorway. "Thank you for seeing me. I know I don't deserve your time." "Sit down," I said, gesturing to the chair across from my desk. Professional courtesy, nothing more. Madison settled into the chair, clutching a leather portfolio that had seen better days. "Your office is incredible. Regional director suits you." "What's this about, Madison?" I asked, cutting through the small talk. Ashley mentioned a business proposal. She took a deep breath, the kind that preceded difficult conversations. "I've been struggling to find work since leaving North Point. The industry is smaller than I realized, and word has gotten around about what happened." The admission hung in the air between us. Madison's attempt to steal my promotion had become industry gossip, the kind of cautionary tale that spread through professional networks and damaged reputations permanently. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, and meant it despite everything. Professional sabotage was serious, but watching someone's career implode was still uncomfortable. She continued, "I've spent the past 2 months reflecting on my choices. I know I can't undo what I did, but I want to try to make amends, not for my sake, but because I genuinely believe I can contribute something valuable." She opened her portfolio and pulled out a thick document bound with a clear cover. "I've been researching opportunities in digital health marketing, telemedicine platforms, health apps, virtual patient engagement. There's a massive growth market that traditional pharmaceutical marketing isn't addressing effectively." Despite my wariness, I found myself interested. Digital health is indeed an emerging sector that most healthcare marketing firms are struggling to understand. The regulatory landscape was unclear, the technology evolved rapidly, and traditional relationship-building approaches didn't necessarily translate to digital platforms. "What kind of opportunities?" I asked. Madison's demeanor shifted slightly, confidence returning as she moved into familiar territory. 3 major telemedicine companies are looking for marketing partners who understand both healthcare compliance and digital user experience. The contracts are worth $2.8 million annually, but they require expertise that most agencies don't have. She slid the document across my desk. "I've been spending 2 months developing relationships with their marketing directors, understanding their pain points, mapping out service offerings that address their specific needs." I flipped through the proposal, noting detailed market analysis, competitive landscape assessments, and projected revenue models. The work was thorough, professional, exactly the kind of strategic thinking that had made Madison effective before her ethical failure. "This is impressive," I admitted, "but I'm curious why you're bringing this to me instead of starting your own consultancy or approaching other agencies." Madison's expression grew serious. "Because I burned my bridges in this industry. No reputable firm will hire me after what happened at North Point. But more than that, this opportunity requires the kind of healthcare compliance expertise that you've built. I have the digital marketing knowledge and client relationships, but I need someone who understands FDA regulations and medical marketing ethics."
The proposal was essentially asking me to partner with her, to combine my healthcare expertise with her digital marketing skills to pursue contracts neither of us could win independently. It was audacious given our history, but also strategically sound. "You're suggesting we work together," I said carefully. "I'm suggesting that I work for you," she corrected. As a contractor, consultant, whatever structure makes sense. You lead the client relationships and compliance strategy. I handle digital campaign development and execution. Revenue split reflects your senior role and the fact that these contracts would come through your division. The conversation was taking an unexpected turn. Madison wasn't just apologizing or asking for forgiveness. She was proposing a business arrangement that could benefit both of us while acknowledging the power dynamic that her betrayal had created. "Why should I trust you?" I asked directly. "You sabotaged my career advancement 2 months ago. What's different now?" Madison met my eyes steadily. "Because I have nothing left to lose and everything to prove. My reputation in this industry is destroyed unless I can demonstrate that I've learned from my mistakes. Working under your leadership, delivering results for your division, that's the only path I have back to professional credibility." She pulled out her phone and showed me a series of email exchanges with executives at the telemedicine companies. The conversations were professional, detailed, clearly the result of weeks of relationship building and needs assessment. "I've already done the groundwork," she continued. "These clients are ready to sign contracts, but they need assurance that their marketing partner understands healthcare compliance. Your division's reputation with pharmaceutical clients gives you credibility that I can't access on my own." I studied the email threads, noting the engagement level and specific requirements the clients had outlined. The business opportunity was legitimate, potentially worth millions in annual revenue to my division. But working with Madison would mean trusting someone who'd already betrayed me once. "Let me ask you directly," I said. "What happened with the promotion application? I want to understand your thought process." Madison was quiet for a long moment, composing her response. "I panicked. I'd been watching you advance, building expertise in an area I'd avoided, and I realized that my career strategy wasn't working. Instead of developing my own specialized knowledge, I tried to take credit for yours." "But why not just apply honestly? You had strong qualifications in other areas." "Because I knew you were better qualified for healthcare marketing, and I was afraid of losing out again. I'd been passed over for 3 other promotions in the past 2 years, and I convinced myself that playing politics was more important than playing fair." The honesty was uncomfortable, but felt genuine. Madison's career strategy had been based on networking and charm rather than specialized expertise. And when faced with real competition, she'd chosen sabotage over honest effort. I spent 8 weeks unemployed, watching job applications get rejected, having conversations with potential employers that ended as soon as they checked references. I finally understood that reputation matters more than I had ever realized. And I understood that what I did to you was inexcusable. My phone buzzed with a text from Catherine Burke. "Quarterly division review in 30 minutes. Your numbers look excellent." The reminder of my current success provided perspective on Madison's proposal. I was succeeding in a role that exceeded my original ambitions, leading a division that was exceeding growth targets, building a career trajectory that positioned me for executive leadership. Madison's betrayal had inadvertently accelerated my advancement rather than hindering it. "I need time to consider this," I said, closing the proposal document. "The business opportunity is interesting, but the personal dynamics are complicated." "I understand," Madison said, standing to leave. "I know I don't deserve consideration, let alone partnership, but I wanted you to see that I'm trying to find a way forward that creates value rather than destroys it." She paused at the door, turning back toward my desk. "Rebecca, I want you to know that seeing your success doesn't make me bitter. It makes me realize how much potential I wasted by focusing on shortcuts instead of building real expertise. You earned everything you have." After she left, I sat staring at the proposal document, mind working through the implications. The business opportunity was substantial, potentially transformative for my division's growth trajectory, but working with Madison would require constant vigilance, clear boundaries, and ironclad contracts that protected my interests. That evening, I called Catherine Burke to discuss the digital health opportunity. I explained the situation honestly, the potential client contracts, Madison's role in developing the relationships, and the complicated history between us. "Interesting situation," Catherine said after I'd finished explaining. "The revenue potential is significant, and digital health is definitely a growth area we should be pursuing. But you're right to be cautious about the partnership dynamics." "What would you recommend?" I asked.
Treat it like any other business decision, she replied. Evaluate the opportunity on its merits, structure contracts that protect your interests, and maintain clear authority over client relationships. If Madison delivers results under your leadership, that benefits everyone. If she creates problems, you terminate the arrangement. And if the industry gossip about her past affects client relationships, she was quiet for a moment. That's a valid concern, but sometimes giving people a chance to redeem themselves under proper oversight creates loyalty that's more valuable than hiring someone with a clean record but questionable commitment. Over the weekend, I researched the telemedicine companies Madison had identified. All three were venture-backed startups with significant funding and aggressive growth targets. Their marketing needs were exactly as she'd described: complex compliance requirements combined with digital user acquisition strategies that traditional healthcare agencies struggled to execute.
I also reached out discreetly to contacts at competing agencies, gauging their interest in digital health marketing. The feedback confirmed Madison's assessment. Most firms were either avoiding the sector due to regulatory complexity or pursuing it without sufficient healthcare expertise. Monday morning, I called Madison and scheduled a follow-up meeting. This time, I had specific terms to discuss. I'm willing to explore a pilot project, I told her when she returned to my office. One client, 6-month initial contract, with clearly defined roles and performance metrics. Madison's relief was visible. What would the structure look like? You'd work as an independent contractor, reporting directly to me. All client communications go through my approval, all strategy decisions require my sign-off, and all revenue flows through my division with a predetermined split. If the pilot succeeds, we evaluate expanding the arrangement. That's more than fair, she said immediately. What would the revenue split be? 70-30, with me taking the larger share. I'm providing the healthcare expertise, the compliance oversight, the client credibility, and the administrative infrastructure. You're providing digital marketing knowledge and initial client relationships. Madison nodded without hesitation. Agreed. When would we start? After legal reviews the contractor agreement and I've spoken directly with the client contacts you've developed, I need to verify that they're comfortable with the arrangement and understand the reporting structure. The conversation continued for another hour, establishing boundaries, expectations, and success metrics. By the end, we had the framework for a business relationship that acknowledged our complicated history while focusing on professional objectives. 2 weeks later, Madison started working on our first digital health client contract. She operated from a co-working space in Santa Monica, attending client meetings virtually or in person with my explicit approval. Every strategy document, every campaign proposal, every client communication came through my review before implementation. The arrangement was formal, professional, and initially awkward, but within a month, we'd found a working rhythm that leveraged both of our strengths while maintaining clear authority lines. Madison's digital marketing expertise was genuinely valuable, and her willingness to work under my leadership demonstrated the humility that her betrayal had cost her. The client feedback has been excellent, I told Catherine during our monthly division review. They're particularly impressed with how we've balanced compliance requirements with user experience optimization. And how's the working relationship with Madison? I asked. Professional. She's delivering quality work and respecting the boundaries we established. Whether that continues long-term remains to be seen, but so far it's been productive. The first digital health contract generated $340,000 in revenue over 6 months, exceeding both client expectations and our internal projections. More importantly, it established my division as a leader in emerging digital health marketing sectors, attracting attention from other digital health companies seeking similar expertise. By month 4 of our working arrangement, Madison had helped secure meetings with 2 additional telemedicine platforms interested in comprehensive marketing partnerships. The potential contracts were worth over $1.5 million annually, representing significant growth for my division and career advancement opportunities that I'd never anticipated. "You've built something impressive here," Madison said during one of our weekly check-ins. "The digital health sector is exploding, and you're positioning yourself as the expert everyone wants to work with." The comment was professional rather than personal, acknowledging my leadership while maintaining the appropriate distance our history required.
Madison had learned to separate her admiration for my professional success from any expectation of restored friendship. The opportunities are substantial, I agreed. Digital health is reshaping how healthcare companies think about patient engagement and compliance marketing. Do you think there's room to expand the contractor team? She asked. I've identified a few digital marketing specialists who have healthcare industry experience. Not enough to compete independently, but enough to scale our capacity. The suggestion made business sense. My division was approaching the limits of what Madison and I could handle as a two-person digital health team, and the client demand was growing faster than our ability to serve it. Put together a proposal for team expansion. Include candidate profiles, capacity projections, and revised revenue models. If the numbers work, we'll discuss it with Catherine. 3 months later, I was leading a digital health marketing team of 8 people, managing contracts worth $3.2 million annually, and being recruited by healthcare marketing firms that wanted to hire me as their VP of digital strategy. Madison had become my most senior contractor, managing day-to-day operations while I focused on strategy and business development. The transformation was remarkable. What had started as Madison's desperate attempt to salvage her career had evolved into a legitimate business partnership that advanced both of our professional objectives. She'd found a path back to industry credibility, while I discovered a growth opportunity that accelerated my career beyond traditional healthcare marketing. Sometimes the best business relationships come from unexpected places, Catherine observed during my annual review. Madison's contribution to the digital health division has been substantial, and your leadership of that growth has been exemplary. It's been a learning experience in risk management and opportunity assessment. Not all professional relationships need to be based on personal friendship to be productive. The annual review concluded with discussion of my promotion to Director of Innovation for the entire West Coast Division, a role that would oversee both traditional healthcare marketing and emerging digital health initiatives. At 29, I was positioned for VP-level advancement within 2 years. Walking back to my office after the review, I reflected on how dramatically my career had evolved since Madison's initial betrayal 18 months earlier. Her attempt to steal my promotion had led to opportunities I'd never imagined, while her subsequent redemption efforts had created business value that benefited both of us.
We talked for another hour about the transition logistics, client handover procedures, and maintaining professional relationships across agencies. The conversation felt collegial rather than personal, focused on business implications rather than emotional dynamics. Rebecca, I want you to know that working with you changed how I think about professional relationships, Madison said as we prepared to leave. I learned that trust has to be earned through consistent actions, not just clever words. You've demonstrated that consistently over the past year, I replied. Your work with the digital health clients has been exceptional, and your willingness to accept oversight showed genuine commitment to rebuilding your reputation. Madison's departure 6 weeks later was handled professionally, with client transitions managed smoothly and team responsibilities redistributed among remaining staff. Several team members expressed interest in the leadership opportunities created by her exit, demonstrating the depth of talent we'd developed. My VP promotion was announced simultaneously, positioning me to oversee emerging healthcare marketing sectors across NorthPoint's entire national operation. The role came with relocation back to Chicago, a corner office on the 32nd floor, and strategic responsibility for markets worth over $50 million annually. At my farewell gathering in Los Angeles, the digital health team presented me with a framed photo from our first major client presentation. Madison and me flanking the CEO of a telemedicine startup, all of us grinning after signing a $2.3 million contract. You built something special here, said David Shen, my replacement as regional director. The systems you created for scaling healthcare technology marketing are already being implemented in our East Coast offices. The compliment felt significant because it acknowledged the lasting impact of the work rather than just the immediate financial results. Building sustainable systems that could operate without my direct involvement was what separated tactical success from strategic leadership. 3 months into the VP role, I received a LinkedIn message from Madison. Saw the announcement about NorthPoint's new medical device marketing division. Your strategic vision continues to impress. The industry is lucky to have leaders who think long-term. The message was professional rather than personal, acknowledging my success without seeking renewed friendship. Madison had found her path to independent credibility, while I had discovered opportunities for growth that neither of us had originally envisioned. My assistant knocked on my office door, interrupting my reflection on Madison's message. Rebecca, the board meeting is starting in 10 minutes. They're expecting your presentation on the Q4 expansion strategy. I gathered my materials and headed toward the boardroom, mind already focused on the growth projections and market analysis that would shape NorthPoint's healthcare marketing strategy for the next fiscal year. The company that had once seemed like the ceiling of my ambitions had become the foundation for opportunities I was still discovering. The elevator carried me toward the executive floor, where I'd present strategies that could influence healthcare marketing across dozens of markets. Madison's attempted betrayal had accidentally accelerated a career trajectory that now included genuine influence over industry practices and emerging market development. Sometimes the worst professional experiences became catalysts for the best career outcomes. Sometimes betrayal created opportunities for growth that wouldn't have existed through conventional advancement. And sometimes the people who tried to destroy your career accidentally helped build something better than either of you had originally imagined. The elevator doors opened onto the executive floor, where my strategic vision would help determine how healthcare companies connected with patients across the entire country. It was exactly where I belonged, even if the path to get there had been completely unexpected. Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories ready for you right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest uploads.